I know you can't see me, but you can hear me just fine, can't you?
Yes,
Yes,
please.
ma'am.
Okay,
Yes.
good. Okay, we're very, very pleased that today we have Ghlee Woodworth with us. She's a local author and a local historian. She previously had a very long career with the Peace Corps, and she traveled the world, and we're just so very fortunate that she came back to her hometown. And she's especially well known for her cemetery tours and her history talks. And she continued the cemetery tours, which were started by her father way back when, Todd Woodworth. So that's been great. Ghlee has a new book out, and it is called the Newburyport Clipper Heritage Trail. And it is loaded with self-guided history tours and wonderful, wonderful pictures. And after the village has purchased several copies of that book, as well as her book about Tiptoe Through the Tombstones about the Oak Hill Cemetery. And so if you registered for the raffle, then you are, able, your name could be drawn for one of those books. Ghlee announced that she is donating an additional Clipper City Heritage Trail book, as well as the Tiptoe Through the Tombstones book. So almost everybody who registered for the raffle is going to win something, almost, So are we ready then?
We all set?
Okay, I'm all set.
Just a second. Okay, I'm going to mute everyone else, and I'm going to spotlight Ghlee. Okay. So, spotlight for everyone. The mute all button isn't working. So Ghlee, you can go ahead, and I'm just going to mute everyone else.
Okay. All right. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. And I want you to put your thinking caps on. Get ready. All right. And I'm pretending that I can see all of you and I can hear all of you. Anybody who has attended my presentations, I just love chit-chatting with the audience throughout the presentation. But there'll be a chance to make comments and questions after the slideshow. Okay, so welcome, Greater Newburyport Village. And you're about to see a slideshow on my latest book, the Newburyport Clipper Heritage Trail, Volume 1. All right, and here we go. All right, well, let's go back. Wait a minute. Thinking cap. Where are we in that photograph? Think about that large rock. Hopefully some of you have been there to visit. And it was installed in 1902 in honor of the first settlers who landed approximately here on the Parker River down in Newbury on Cottage Road. Cottage Road, Riverfront Cottage Road. So take a trip down there one day if you've not seen that stone. All right. Okay. Here we go. Where are we standing? Where do you think we're standing and looking right now? Beautiful view. Downtown Newburyport and the river and the mouth of the river. And we are standing in the Unitarian steeple, right? And we're looking down on Inn Street here in the forefront. This was before 1968 when the demolition began on urban renewal. And left center, the photo in the left center, you can see the roof and the front of the custom house. And then further is, of course, the river, Salisbury, and the mouth of the river, a little bit right center. Okay, so all of these photographs you are going to be able to see in the trail book. Okay, here we go. So it was based on the Clipper Heritage Trail website. I did the website first before a book. And there's a series, it's a series of self-guided history tours. There's downloadable brochures and maps, and there's also free smartphone tours. All you do is Google on your smartphone tour, Newburyport Clipper Heritage Trail, and you can pick up these free tours. And in 2014, the website was a winner, a merit award winner with the American Association of State and Local History. This is the home page of the Clipper Heritage Trail website. And you can see up on the bar, the top, it says tours, and you just click on that. You can see 10 or 12 tours. And then on the left, bottom line, at the top, you can see mobile website, and you can click on that website and look at it on your computer also. Okay, this is the cover of Volume 1, and on the right is a busy day. It's in July of 1898, and Newburyport is celebrating the end of the Spanish-American War, and you can see the firehouse on the right. And on the left, the back cover, where are we? We are looking up State Street. On the left is just past the horse and wagon. On the left is Liberty Street, where the upper building is Starbucks now. All right, and on the right is now the Market Square where the Bullnose is, the big, large brick area. Okay, again, this is this is Volume 1. It's got 9 chapters / tours, maps, legends. I've written about 75 locations, and there are 370 plus images. Next July, I hope to have Volume 2 out. And Volume 2 will go from Maudsley State Park to Plum Island and everywhere in between. So let's take a look at the different tours. I'm going to go over each one of them. The beginning, which 1635, so a little bit of history there. And then I wanted to give just a brief overview of our architecture to make sure, geez, what are we looking at? There's the Federal and the First Period buildings, there's the Victorian, so forth. Ashes to Restoration, the story of our historic downtown. I love this story. We'll talk a little bit more about it. Wrote about shipbuilders and how did they actually build those vessels, from little fishing vessels to the 2,000-ton big ships. Downtown, uptown, State Street, locations on State Street, locations and people on Pleasant Street, Green Street, Brown Square, and down along and the Ridge. And where is down along? And where is up along? Think. Down along is the south end, from State Street down to Marches Hill. Up along is from State Street up to 3 roads, all right, Ackerson Common. Okay, the beginning. The design of the book, as in the Tiptoe Oak Hill Cemetery book, which won 5 awards, I published that 10 years ago. It did win a book design award. And so the look of the book is just as important to me as the content. And so this old paper, as in the website, we have the old paper, and this is the beginning. This shows the paper, the old paper is used for each of the title pages of each of the tours and chapters, okay? So this is the beginning. Again, here's another view of the landing area where the first settlers arrived in 1635, and the rock that commemorates their landing. Okay, architecture, post beams, hammers, and nails. And you can see the 5 general styles that we have in Newburyport. And I've got the diagrams that the Preservation Trust helped create with Greg Collings. Why Reinvent the Wheel? They're beautiful diagrams. And then a photo of each of the house styles. This is a great find. Sharon Spieldenner, our library archivist. Rules of Work. 1805, this was written. and it lists the criteria for the builders who are building windows and doors and outhouses and the entire house, and it gives a outline of how long these types of pieces should take, because everybody was doing a wood mill frame with, it might have taken a 1 day and somebody's charging for a week. And so this was some criteria that was written, 1805. And I use lots of images, of course, of the homes, and then windows. I love windows in doorways. All right, so here's tour 2. Again, this is my favorite slideshows. I did a lot of reading and research over the years and tried to figure out what is the story of the people who are behind the restoration. And I start off with the Great Fire of 1811 on the left, destroyed over 200 buildings. Fortunately, there was no loss of life down around Market Square. And so many of these buildings we see today were constructed after 1811 in the 18-teens and the 1820s. Now, if we jump ahead to the 1960s, I'm not going to tell you the story, but this is a great, wonderful story of an 18-year-old young woman, Mary, who said to her dad, Dr. Wilkins, Daddy, you have to save the downtown. And I'm going to stop there. All right. It's a wonderful story. All right. Mayor George Lawler, I think he's never gotten his due, his recognition. He had the papers on his desk that the city council passed in 1964 that said, let's bulldoze the downtown. Those papers were sitting on his desk, and he did not sign those papers. Now think about how fast it takes you to sign your name. That's all he had to do, was sign those papers, and the downtown would have been gone. All right, so here's some before and after photographs. For those of you who've been around quite a while, you might remember. Where are we? This is N Street, looking down N Street towards Market Square. And today, incredible. And where are we here? Take a look. What's in the background? That's the river, the Merrimack River, and to the left, there's the Salisbury Newburyport Bridge. So where were we looking? Where are those people standing? Behind the firehouse. Isn't it beautiful? All right, shipbuilders. So I wanted to talk about how ships were built, right down to the guys are walking in the woods, getting ready to cut some trees down. There they are, the lumber on the left, they're starting to cut. They cut the trees, they're cutting it up. Got a whole long list of what they need. Then eventually they get back to the shipyard. On the right top, there's a framing. And then down on the bottom, they framed, and now they're starting to plank the vessel. And isn't this a credible shot? Wouldn't you give anything to look and to be there when they launched one of these huge vessels into the river? Look at the people on top of the ship. And people would come in on the train. The train came in 1840. People would come in on the train, and children would skip school that day to be able to watch these vessels launch. Okay, downtown, uptown, State Street. Here's the different locations and people that I've written about. You know, you could have dozens of places. So eventually I've got to say, okay, here's a list, and all right, I have to stop. And so you can see Marine Society, Fowles Mills, Alfred Bricker, who was a well-known painter, Philip Blumpy, I love his name. That's why I wrote about Philip Blumpy. I walk by his gravestone, beautiful large gravestone in Oak Hill for years. I love the name. I said, I've got to research this guy. And sure enough, he had a little grocery store on State Street. Wolf Tavern, of course, the Dalton House, Minnie Ackerson, one of our local authors. All right, and you can see on the right is the legend. So this book is, you can sit in your most comfortable chair at home and open up any page. You don't have to read it in order. And then you can also go outdoors and take a nice walk through the streets with the book. These are different images that I use. I love city directories. It's one of my favorite research tools. And up on left, there's an ad from the city directory. Mr. Mumford, who was a dentist at the Prince House. Where was the Prince House? Think. The Tracy Mansion. The Prince family lived there, and it was known as the Prince House. On the right, my late friend Rick Bagg, Dr. Rick Bagg, helped me get some images of old coins from the 16, 17, and 1800s. Beautiful images, and this was what was jingling in people's pockets. Wolf Tavern sign on the bottom left. This is an engraving in the center right, and this is the Newburyport Sun Hotel. And does that building on the left look a little familiar? Where was the Sun Hotel? Well, it's a Tracy Mansion. It was a hotel at one point. All right, and then on the right, I don't know if you can see that image. That is a drawing by our well-known artist, Laura Coombs Hill, of Nathaniel Tracy. Okay, where are we? This should be recognizable. We are standing on State Street, right? On the left, Pleasant Street is just out of the photo. So we're looking down, and look at all those awnings. Who do you think made the awnings? They were the sailmakers. So if they weren't making sails, they were making awnings for stores. All right, and where are we? What are we looking at? This is maybe a tough photograph. On the left, that house is still standing. That's where Philip Blumpy lived. And this is now a professional building. It's on the corner of Temple and State Street. On the right is the Whitefield Church, which was demolished in the 1940s. And look at the old cars here. All right, Pleasant Street. Wrote about the Dodge, Dodge shoe factory, which was the top producing shoe factory in the country. That is unbelievable. They produce ladies and children's shoes. Top producing in the country. Toll Silversmiths, of course, Bartlett Steam Mills, the Safford Jewelers, the beautiful, beautiful Unitarian Church, the firehouse, and the Hidden House, and then eventually the post office. All right, here's a nice view. Beautiful Unitarian Church. We're standing with our back towards State Street. You can see the Dodge Shoe Factory on the left, which is now referred to as the Mercantile Building, has condos. All right. Look at the Hudson wagon. Okay, this is the other view. Now we're looking towards the Unitarian Church. On the near left, that's the Alexander Building with 3 floors. Dottie Phillips, years ago, her husband, they owned the building. Dottie just passed away a few months ago. And a few years ago, she told me the story, and she was still upset with her husband because he took the 3rd floor down and ended up with a flat roof. It would be a beautiful building if there was a little bit nicer design of a roof. Okay, and that white building on the left, that was the firehouse, Engine 5, and that is now the entrance to the Green Street parking lot. Okay, this is a wonderful photograph, wonderful. Remember, we're on Pleasant Street. And there is Star Theater on the right. We had several theaters in Newburyport. This one's on the right, right there. And what is there now? That is the driveway for the post office, where you can come out. All right, it's a one-way, right? And then you see to the left center, Premier Theater. That was a theater. All right. So, and then there's the far left is the Dodge building, the Mercantile building. Now, it's wonderful if you take the book out and you stand on Pleasant Street or stand on State Street, and you can compare these old photographs. And always take a look at the roof lines and the windows, and you can kind of see where you are. Okay, Green Street. Another theater, Strand Theater, the Baptist Church, Masonic Temple, the Mullikins, the Greenleaf House, Judge Theophilus Parsons House, Clark Currier House, now what is it? Clark Currier Inn, and the IC Church. All right, there's a wonderful photograph. You can guess where we are. We're standing about Pleasant Street, looking down Green, and there's the river and Rings Island. Note the houses on the left, and note the houses on the right. A lot has changed on Lower Green Street. All right, now we're looking up. And what's that steeple? That is the original Immaculate Conception Catholic Church steeple, right? They built the church in the 50s, and finally they added the steeple, and this steeple was lost in a fire. Anybody know when? In the 1940s. That steeple fell down, burned down, and fortunately they were able to save the church. Now, what about in the center photograph? This beautiful home. This is where what stands now? The IC School. And this is, you're at the corner of Washington and Green. This was Judge Theophilus Parsons' home. And I have a wonderful story. And who was the young law student who worked under Judge Parsons? And he eventually became the President of the United States. John Quincy Adams was here about 1778 and 9. Okay, Brown Square, known as Brown Square, by 1805. People were referring to Brown Square, named for Moses Brown. Talk a little bit about the homes, Garrison Inn, the Old North Church, Garrison, William Lloyd Garrison, Charles Sargent, Butler's Bakery, City Hall, and War Memorials. Okay, where are we standing again? We're looking down City Hall and center right. We're standing at the Unitarian steeple again. And look in the horse and wagon right there in the foreground. And there's Brown Square before Garrison statue, and the Old North Church, which is now the Central Congregational Church. There it is close up. The first church was facing the river. And then when they built the new church, they turned it around to face Brown Square. There you go, Garrison Inn, also known as Brown's Hotel. Moses Brown built this in the 1811-ish. He had planned to build more brick buildings along Brown Square, but then came the War of 1812, and finances were not doing well. So this is where he stopped, one building. And there's City Hall, built, completed in 1851. And who was our first mayor of Newburyport? Caleb Cushing. Caleb of the Cushing House family which is now for many years the Museum of Old Newbury on the top of Fruit and High Street. All right, Biscuits, Boxes, and Coal, one of my favorite titles. And this goes from the firehouse down Water Street to the Coast Guard station. So there's the different locations, the waterfront, of course, Firehouse Knight Grains Company, the oldest, longest running grain company, Elbow Alley, where many African Americans had businesses, the Custom House, the Coal Company, Story, Hale Box Factory, Cushing's Wharf, the Range Lights, and Coast Guard. That's a great photo. Yep. Built in 1823, the old market house, now the firehouse. See the horse and wagons, very cool photo. And standing in Market Square, looking at the Custom House, Maritime Museum, built in 1835. Another horse and wagon on the right. And again, when you're looking at old photographs, it helps to look the windows, the doorways, and the roof lines, all right? And what are those up on top of the roof? What do they call those walls? You see on the right? Firewalls. Those were built with those new buildings after the fire of 1811. They put the firewall. So if you haven't noticed them, next time you go downtown, take a look at the roof lines and you'll see, and hopefully if there is a fire, it helps to stop the fire from jumping to the next section of the building. This is a neat photograph. And we're looking at what? The City Railroad that came in about 1873 to help with the coal industry. This was the beginning of the industrialization of the waterfront. See the different church steeples, and you can see left center is the back of the firehouse. Left center, back of the firehouse. Down along and the ridge. Okay, so I talk a lot about people here, right about, and the houses that are still on High Street. Again, I start from Marches Hill and go up to the Museum of Old Newbury. So the Mullikins, the Brays, the Graves, the Healy House, the Wheelwright Home, the Museum of Old Newbury, and so on. This is a photograph. Most of my all my photographs are from either the Library Archival Center or the Museum of Old Newbury. And this was a few years ago, the Museum of Old Newbury obtained this photograph. Can you figure out where we are? Where are we standing? We're standing on a hill and we're looking towards High Street. We're on Marches Hill. And if you see in the forefront, kind of that white path, that's the old City Railroad, which is now the Clipper City Rail Trail that runs along Marches Hill. All right. And there's another photograph. This is at the top of Bromfield Street. And you see how the street widened? Well, at one point, the city thought about putting a train depot here, but they changed plans and they ended up putting the train depot on Pond Street, where CVS is now. And that was a train depot. In this picture, you can see trolley tracks in the center of High Street. And Marches Hill is on the left, where they had a fence at that time. And there is Margaret Cushing on the right, young Margaret Cushing, who lived here in the Cushing home on the left, now the Museum of Old Newbury. And Margaret lived there from the 1850s when she was born, and she lived there until the 1950s. She made it to 100 years old. And I use, she kept a diary. Much of that was saved, and I used several of her passages in her diary. And there, this is a very cool photograph. Look at all the bicycles. Lots of bicycles. And where are we? Look what's in the background. That is Old Hill Burying Ground. They're standing on Bartlett Mall. They're on Bartlett Mall, and that's Old Hill behind them, and Pond Street on the left. All right, that's it. Yep, okay. Information. All right, okay. I think, here we go. All right.
Lee, thank you so much. That was wonderful.